Good morning, everybody. Hope you're doing well. So today we're going to continue this video series. We're going to talk about what can you run for the 400 and the 800 if you run this for a mile. Okay, this is part 2 of a series. Last week we talked about what can you run for the 2 mile and the 5K if you run this for the mile. We're going to use the same numbers. We're going to go from 6 minutes down to 4 minutes, and it's important that you watch both of these. Okay, so you can tell the difference. Okay, what are your capabilities? And what I'm saying specifically too, what can you run, not what should you run, because there are differences. Not everybody's going to be able to do the same thing. Okay, you'll find distance runners stepping down to the mile. You find and short sprinters, middle distance runners stepping up to the mile. So this is just a general template that shows your capabilities. Okay, and one of the things you could tell is if you're closer to the longer stuff than you are the shorter stuff, that's a sign to improve speed development. On the flip side, if you're closer to the shorter stuff like the 400 and 800, then you are the longer stuff like the 2 mile and 5K. That's just a testament of what? Going to improve your aerobic development. So these two videos will tell you a lot about your capabilities. So if you're a runner or a coach, this is what you want to be, definitely taking notes on. And if you have any questions, you bring them. I'm more than happy to answer them. But we're going to get right into this. Again, it's what can you run for 400 and 800 if you run this for a mile. Okay, and as always, if you're a runner or a coach, make sure that you're subscribed to the channel if you haven't done that yet. Okay, and if you want to continue to do this, I'm gonna do a lot more live streams. Okay, I'm also gonna do training paces, meaning what we're gonna use the same 6 minutes to 4 minutes space. What should your training paces look like if you're there? For easy runs, steady runs, tempo runs, threshold runs, VO2 max, and all that stuff. That way, it'll give you an idea, and this will also give you an idea of your capabilities here. So, to give you an idea of what kind of training paces should I be working towards if I want to hit my capability in this particular event. If I want to run this particular 400, if I do run this for the mile, how can I get there? Same thing for the 800, same thing for the 2 mile, same thing with 5K. So, this will tell you a lot. Okay, now let's get right into this. I'm going to put this on the screen. If your mile's around 6 minutes, your capabilities for the 400 are 73.74. 800 capabilities, 245 to 246. Now, keep in mind, there are exceptions to the rule. Some people might be faster in certain events. Some people might be slower. But like I said, this will tell you how close you are, okay, what your capabilities are. If you happen to be slower in the 400, but you're better in the longer stuff, like the 2 mile or even 800 or the 5K, that's a sign to work on speed development. And we've talked about speed development a lot, okay? If you're slower in the 5K, but you're faster in the 400, that's a sign of working aerobic development, right? So this tells you a lot. And again, if you haven't seen my other video, take a look down below. Make sure you watch it because I don't want you to miss anything. Okay, now, if you're closer to 550 for the mile, your 400 capabilities are 71.72. 800 capabilities, 240, 241. Okay. 540, your 400 capabilities are 69.70. 800 capabilities are 235, 236. If you're around 530 for the mile, 67.68 are your 400 capabilities, and 230, 231 are your 800 meter capabilities. Okay. And again, keep in mind, if you're halfway between 540 and 530, it gives you an idea of, okay, how do I modify my training pieces to get towards 530 and so on. So, like I said, these charts will tell you a lot about how to modify your training paces. So that's why it's important to always take notes, especially as a coach. So get right back into it. So 530, like I said, 67, 68, 230, 231. If you're closer to 520 for the mile, your 400 capabilities are 65, 66. Your 800 capabilities, 225, 226. 510 for the mile, 400 capabilities, 63, 64. 800 capabilities, 220, 221. And if you're at 5 minutes for the mile, you're looking at 61, 62, 400 capability. 800 capabilities, 216, 217. That's pretty much spot on. Okay, give you an idea of. I got a lot of folks ask me, how do I break? Where should my 800 be if I want to break 5 minutes in the mile, and so on and so forth. And again, I'm making this clear. These are capabilities, so you can, not necessarily you should. Because like I said, not everybody who breaks 5 minutes will be at 216 and 800. You might have a more strength-oriented runner who runs 220. Who just happens to run much faster in the 2 mile to 5K. Just it happens. Okay. But it's also a sign of how can I improve my speed development? And we've talked about speed development a lot and what to do for middle distance and distance runners. Okay. Before I go any further, we've got a comment. Adam, how are you, my friend? So you want a 225 800, but a 55 400. It's the same for both genders. Not necessarily. It's not really gender specific, in a way. But if that's a sign for if you run 55, then your capabilities are faster than 225. So you probably should be. And we'll get to this too. I mean, the next slide it's going to cut up. You'll see where it lines up. So what does that tell you? Well, maybe add some. If you're not doing tempo running, maybe add some tempo runs. Right, you build that strength. Okay, because the 400 and 800 are the two most unforgiving events, and this is where you'll find the most balance of anaerobic and aerobic. So training has to line up to complement that. Okay, and if you're not doing tempo runs or threshold work, I encourage you to do it. Right, speed development, speed endurance stuff. I talk about speed endurance all the time. Speed endurance 200s. Okay, 150.78. What can you run in a mile? You should be probably around 420. Right, or under 420. Multi Kenny, how are you, my friend? How are you? 157. Yeah, let's keep the slides going. That way you'll get a better idea, Adam. Okay. All right. Second slide. 450 for the mile. Your capability is 58, 59. Okay. 211, 212 for the 800. 440 capabilities for the 400, 56, 57. 800, 206, 207. 430 for the mile capabilities. 400, 54, 55. 400. 2 minutes, 201 for the 800. So going back to your Adam right here. Okay. Now, if you're more of a 4.8 guy and not necessarily the mile, and I'll take this off the screen really quickly. Like I said, speed endurance 200s. So if you want to run closer to 800, this is if you're running 54, 55, then speed endurance 200s with a 90-second recovery. You built to 8 or 10 of those. Okay. You run them in 30, 31, or you start at 31, 32 per rep, and you build towards 8 or 10 reps. You don't have to go out and do 10 right now, but you build towards that. And then once you get there, you go down to 30, 31, and 29, 30. And you'll notice your 800-meter time come down a little bit more. So the 200, 400 guys. So to this here. Now, instead of doing a 90-second recovery, you do a 2-minute recovery if you're a 200, 400 guy. So 8 times a 200 with a 2-minute recovery. So if you're a 2-4 guy who sometimes likes to step up to the 8, that's the session that can really, really help you. Speed endurance 200s. 8 of them, 2-minute recovery. Okay. After a good warm-up, good drills and strides, and then obviously before a good cool down too. That's definitely a good workout for you right there, Adam. All right. Let's get back to it. Now, 420, your capability for the 400 is 52, 53. 800, your capability is 157, 158. Okay. 410, capabilities are 50 to 51 for the 400, 152, 153 for the 800. 4 minutes, obviously, you're approaching world class here, and 48, 49 for the 400, 800 capabilities, 148, 149. And again, like I said, some 400 runners might not be that fast in the 800 or 400, but they might be faster in the 3K and the 5K. It just tells you a lot. That gives you an idea of whether you're more suited for the middle distance and distance type events, or like if you're going to run a 5K and a 3K or a 3K and a mile, or you're going to run the mile and come back and run a 4x8 later. This gives you a lot of intel. But this is why it's important to have a well-balanced training program, right? With speed development, VO2 max. And again, if you're a distance runner, VO2 max work is 5K pace and 3K pace, 1-to-1 recoveries. If you're a middle distance runner, majority of it's going to be a 3K pace. Less at 5K pace, but still a decent amount, but more of it, VO2 max will be a 3K pace. And then you'll be doing a little bit more event-specific stuff, right? So these are the two charts I want you to, look into and focus on, okay? Multi, what do we got? Coaching, assistant coach for cross country. You love the middle distance events. You've developed a good bond with your athletes. And they frustrated with our current training, and I agree with them. The head coach hasn't done that. What's the current training program look like, Kenny? Multi Kenny, give me an idea. Put some in the comments, and we'll see if we can make some helpful suggestions for you. You do easy runs if you normally mainly 100, 400, 100. Well, Adam, if you're not racing on a Saturday, I encourage you to do an easy run, even over rolling hills, like kind of a cross-country simulated run, but no more than 3 miles if you're a 100, 400 person. But easy runs, and you can add some stuff. I mean, if you're mainly 100, 400, the way I train my like long sprinters and short sprinters is Monday's pure speed, Tuesday is event specific speed endurance 200s, Wednesday is kind of hill running, right? Build that strength. Thursday is more event specific stuff. Like if you're going to train for the 400, you're going to run a couple 250s or something like that at your goal 400 pace with a lot of recovery, something like that, right? And then Fridays you work on starts and handoffs, baton handoffs, and things like that. And then Saturday, kind of a cross country simulator run, which kind of acts as an easy run, but you can work on your attacking the hills and acceleration and stuff like that. But you're essentially running 6 days a week, taking off on Sunday. But it's not like you're running 70 miles a week. You're running more event specific stuff 6 days a week. So you do more 200, 400 spots. So that's good, Adam. So the speed endurance 200s on Tuesday will be a good idea for you. And I would encourage you, if you're not doing hill running, to do hill running on Wednesday and then some event specific stuff on Thursday. You'd be surprised at how much it can help you. So Multi-Kenny, an athlete can run 52, 203, but struggles to go sub 450 in the mile. 3 mile across is 50:59, but averages low 16 minutes. So that person, are you doing tempo runs, Multi-Kenny? If not, why? Right? Because if he's running 52 and 203, struggles to go into 450, then tempo runs and VO2 max work would be really, really helpful to get that mile down. And that mile down will help that 3 mile cross country. Because 15:59, that's essentially a 16:40 or something like that. And 450 will be more in line with 16:50 or something like that for the 5K, not the 3 miles. So tempo runs. So you build towards 20 minutes, right? And whatever the mile pace is now, it's basically 50 seconds to 55 seconds slower than your current mile. And you're going to build towards 20 minutes consecutively at that pace, right? That's one thing. VO2 max work is stuff at 3K pace. So let's just say you're going to do 6 times a 600 at 3K pace or 2 mile pace with 1-to-1 recovery. So if you're running them in 2 minutes, you're going to take a 2-minute recovery or whatever. Okay. And the same thing. And that's a good workout as well. If you're going to run 5K pace, you run 5 times 1,000 at 5K pace. If you run them in, let's just say you run them in 320, you're going to take a 3.5 minute recovery. That's VO2 max specific for those events. The 5K and 3K pace will help the tempo run. The tempo run will help the shorter stuff. It'll make it easier to tap into that speed at the end of the 800, at the end of a mile when you need it. So if that makes sense. Training at a low volume, mostly 35 miles a week. Well, the volume isn't really, is not that big of a deal if you're doing the right things in the volume. That's the key. We're going to be 2 tests of 800, 400, 400 with active recovery. Paces are slower. Tempos are 3 miles of tempo run with a mile form up and cool down. They don't do VO2 work at all. And are they doing the right paces for the tempos? For this athlete, let's just say he runs 5 minutes for the mile. You're running 5:50 to no more than 6 minute pace for the tempo run. And you build towards 20 minutes. Okay. Over time, you build to 20 minutes. And then that's going to help that's VO2 max initial right there. Okay. You do tempo runs and threshold work. That's going to build your capacity, your threshold capacity. And again, you could also do threshold work. So if you're doing tempo runs at 5:50 pace, you're going to do threshold workouts at 5:40 pace. Threshold works at basically 8 to 10 seconds per mile faster. So you could do a workout like 6 times 800, or you build towards 6 and you're going to run them in 250 each, but you're only going to take a 1 minute recovery. Okay. So it's important to do the right paces within the workouts themselves to make sure that you're progressing. And this is a way you track stuff, right? And you can write stuff down with pen and pad. Say, is this workout working? Okay. Is he or she progressing the right way? If that makes sense. Adam, your friend ran 30, 15 to 10K, 14.9 split in road tempo, went down 5 seconds since he felt and tried the 10K on the track, but didn't break 32 on the split 15. Tempo went down 5 seconds. What do you mean his tempo went down? Um, his tempo, are you talking about in training, Adam? What do you mean by that? I want to make sure I have an understanding. Not much lactate work either. Varsity athletes struggle with doubling. Well, lactate work, if lactate work is another important thing too. And when you're doing lactate work and so on. So if you want them to get better in the longer stuff, then less lactate work or timing the lactate work. Like if you do the tempos and then you take a 5-minute recovery, and at the end of the stuff, you run some fast 150s or something like that, because that's when you're going to need to tap into it. You're going to need to accelerate when you're tired, right? Nobody cares where you're at in the first 200 and 800. They care where you're at when the last 200. And are you doing the things that put you in a position to tap into that speed, if that makes sense as well? So the varsity struggle with doubling. So, and that could be a fitness thing too. For athletes succeed in spite of our training opinion, biggest indicator, this is the middle lower end of our athletes. So it could be aerobic fitness too. Within that 35 miles, are they doing a long run, right? A long run will complement these things. Tempo runs will complement some of the stuff, or threshold work will complement some of this other stuff. But VO2 max specific, especially since they're running a lot of the shorter events, would come in handy. Would come in handy. What if you race every Thursday in the last month of the season? Would you do speed endurance or threshold on Monday? Depends on what you're racing with, Tunko. It really depends. You can do threshold on Monday and add a little bit of speed on the back end of it, which is fine. And then you have 2 easy days to recover before the Thursday race. Then you can come back Saturday and do a long run or some type of other workout as well. A lighter workout too. Thursday is a kind of a kooky day to race, but if you're, I would do a threshold work on Monday if that's the case. Like tempo threshold pace went down in training by 5 seconds. Why did it go down? Did a race suggest he was ready for it? Like with that 30-15 and 10K 14:49 split, does he have a performance that indicates that he's ready to increase the pace in his training? Because that's when this is another thing too. You want races or time trials to tell you whether you're ready to increase the intensity of your training paces, right? Because if you're not ready to do it, then you won't recover appropriately on the back end. If you're not recovering appropriately, then it's going to affect your performances. So that could also be a reason why it's slowing down. But again, you won't always run faster, and also depends on the course you're running. So it also depends on what did he do that week, Adam? Did anything change in his training that week too? Athletics here, the throwers coach during the track season. When it comes to pace, our coach do not hold the athletes to these paces. It's important to hold them to pace. If you want them to continue to run faster, it's important to have pace ranges for the training. Yeah, it's important to. That's in order for you to track your athlete's progress. You want to make sure they're training in the right paces. I can't emphasize that enough, Multi Kenny. I'm sorry to hear that they don't have watches, man. That's unfortunate. 1 minute 10-second PB and a 5K PB during the split. How long was the race? When you say during the split, how long was the race? They do a lot of runs based on feel, which is why I think so many athletes think they will. Yes, Multi Kenny, you're probably right there. Certain runs are okay based on feel, but runs themselves are different than workouts. If you're doing the right workouts at the right paces, then the runs by feel will gradually progress. So the race was 10K. And then after he ran that, was it 30-50 and 14:45, right? 14:49. Is that when he adjusted his training paces after that? Is that what he did? And is he only doing tempo runs? Is he doing anything else? What's in his training, Adam, is the question. So again, but go back to your point too, Kenny. Runs based on feel is okay if you're doing the right workouts at the right paces, at the right times as well. So this is why having a well-balanced training program, laying things out appropriately, comes in handy, because you want to make sure your athletes are recovering from the workouts and races so that they can continue to progress forward. You want to make sure they're not over racing either. I have so many people who race way too much. way too much, and they're not doing enough training to prepare them for these races. And there's a reason why they're not running any faster, right? So if that makes sense too. But this, and again, if you haven't seen the first one that I put out the other day, what can you run for the 2 mile and 5K based on if you run the mile? I use these same time frames. Okay. I highly encourage you to look at that one, look at this one again, write notes. And they can say, okay, my athletes are here. This is what they run for the longer stuff and the shorter stuff. What do we need to do? Because, like I said, if you're closer to the longer stuff than the shorter stuff, got to work on speed development. If you're closer to the shorter stuff than the longer stuff, got to work on aerobic development. So this is what taking notes is why taking notes is so important. It tells you a lot as a coach about how to track your athlete's fitness and progressing. He's doing 150K a week, almost 100 miles a week, 2 thresholds, one slightly faster, and 1 hill session on Saturday. Is he doing any threshold reps, not full thresholds? Well, threshold reps is still threshold work. You have your aerobic threshold tempo, and you have your anaerobic threshold. And it really depends on the type of threshold stuff you're doing. But the threshold reps are faster than tempo runs. Okay, your aerobic threshold tempo run is at mile pace. It's a marathon pace. Excuse me. Your anaerobic threshold tempo is at half marathon pace. Okay, your threshold reps are essentially 8 to 10 seconds faster per mile than your anaerobic threshold tempo. So if your half marathon pace is 6 minutes per mile, your threshold reps are at 550 per mile, and so on. If that makes sense. But doing the appropriate paces for the and again, aerobic threshold tempos at marathon pace you can do from 30 to 60 minutes. Anaerobic threshold tempos at half marathon pace, no more than 30 minutes. Okay, and then your threshold reps I wouldn't go any more than that 25 or 30 minutes that you do in aerobic threshold tempo. So, and this is a way to kind of lay it out. And then you have VO2 max stuff, which is at 5K pace and 3K pace. And if he's not doing that, I highly encourage him to do that. Because again, these workouts all complement each other. The VO2 max specific at 3K pace and 5K pace complements the threshold and tempos. The thresholds and tempos complement the shorter stuff. You have your speed development, which is at mile pace or 800-meter pace. They all work together. And hill session acts as a form of speed development too. Hill session would be a 10 times 800 meter jog down, 3 times 45 seconds with a jog down. What is he training for, the marathon, Adam? What's he training for? 10 times 800 with an 800-meter jog down. That's a lot of jog down, but I understand because you need to get back to your starting point. So it might be a good idea to do 10 times 400 with a 400-meter jog down and attack the 400s better. It really depends on what he's training for, Adam. 10 times 800 on the track or on a field, then you can progress from 10K pace to 5K pace and take a 2-minute recovery. That's another good workout. So 3K to 10K. So I get the 10 times an 800 uphill, but he might be good to try the 10 times 400 on the uphill. It'll act as a more complementary form of speed development, which would help him in the 3K and the 5K too, as well as the 10K. But he's obviously got a pretty strength-oriented training program there, so which is fine. But how can you refine it, right? How can you give him more options? 10 times a 400 and uphills are good. 3 athletes around 205, 203 trying to go sub 2, and based on one of your previous videos about breaking 2, they don't do any workouts at the paces that you suggested. Why not? Yeah, I mean, that's the key too. I mean, why not? And if you want to break 2 minutes, you have to do a couple things, right? So his coach trained nearly every Irish athlete. Oh, cool. Very cool. In distance, is this person from Ireland, Adam? So to break 2 minutes, obviously, are you doing stuff at 58, 59 pace? Can you do, 200-meter repeats in 28:29, right? Can you do 300-meter repeats in 42:43, 400-meter repeats in 58:59? If you do 400 meter repeats, can you do 4 of them with a 4-minute recovery? Can you do 5 times a 300 at that pace with a 3-minute recovery? Right? Can you do the 200-meter reps at the goal pace with a 90-second recovery? That's more 800-meter specific or 2-minute recovery. Very cool, Adam. Yeah, I would encourage him to consider the shorter hills as well. I don't know many Irish athletes that are stronger in the middle distances. I know they're stronger in the distances. And I've worked personally with a couple of Irish Olympians. His teammates, 18 years old, 29, 46, hilly course. Okay. So good strength-oriented athletes there. But can they step down and run a fast mile or a 3K is the question, too. Malachi, 5:04. Your 400 and 800 beat around Katrina time. Well, take a look at scroll up. Or go back and watch this again. Actually, I'll put this on screen for you. If you're on a 5:04, here, check this out. Your 5 minutes, you're approaching 5 minutes. Your capabilities are 61, 62, 216, 217 for the 400 and 800. And again, your capabilities, that doesn't mean you should be running these things. Like those are your capabilities. So with your capabilities, you kind of design your training to help you match those capabilities to get to that point, if that makes sense, Malachi. So what are your 400 and 800 now? Workout paces are nowhere near the paces some of these athletes want to run. They're expected to go out and try to run paces they haven't done in practice. That's not, unfortunately, that's not setting them up for success. That's not making, if you want to run A, B, and C in a race, you have to train at A, B, and C in practice. It's got to be in line with what you want to do in a race. Otherwise, it's like they're not going to be prepared for it. And these kids are developmental kids. You want to make sure that they're prepared for the races. So, multi-Kenny, if that's how, I hope that's helpful. I hope that's helpful. 18-year-old race in Boston. Okay, cool, man. Will I do an updated marathon train? Yeah, I am. That's going to be my next live streams, Kim. You're welcome, Kim. I'm going to do updated half marathon and marathon. I've been working on them over the last couple of weeks. And marathon training, half marathon training evolves as well. So they'll be in the near future, probably in the next week or so. I'll be doing a half marathon plan and a marathon plan. And I'll be doing live streams so that you can bring any questions you want, Kim. So I will definitely do that. 800's 210, never run the 400, but during time trials run 58 without spike. So, okay. So you probably got a little bit of room for improvement there for the 800 in there, but obviously if you're running 210, you're definitely sub 5 minute capable for the 1600 for the mile. So I'll be doing tempo runs, threshold work, because that's going to help, even stuff at 3K pace with a 1:1 recovery. That's going to help get your mile pace down. 4:15 in a mile, not bad, Adam. Not bad. See, my thought process, Adam, I mean, I like 4:15, but can you run it at the end of a 3K? Can you run it at the end of a 5K when you're going to need to? If that makes sense, Adam. So I want athletes to get to that point. You're welcome, Malachi. So does that make sense, Adam? But I mean, he's clearly doing a strength-oriented program there. But does he have any speed development in his training at all, Adam? Is there any, pure speed development in his training? Because that's going to also help him run a faster mile in 3K and 5K and so on and so forth. Oh, I've got tons of them, Red Tunco, on here and on my TikTok. If those that don't follow me on TikTok, access to Coaches my TikTok profile. And I've got tons of 800, 1600 meters, Red Tunco. But I've got, and even on here too. Go take a look at my videos and you'll see boatloads. But just as an example, training, if you're a middle distance runner, training for 800. I mean, well, the first question is, are your athletes, or if you're a coach, or if you're an athlete yourself, are you doing a tempo run? Are you doing VO2 max work at 3K or 2 mile pace? Because those two things are really going to help your 800 and your 1600 races. Okay. Are you doing basic speed development, like progression 150s? Finished 11 euros. All right. So he's progressing now. That's good work. Back to your question, Tonka. Are they doing speed, like pure sprint work after a run, maybe once or twice a week? That's not workouts. I'm just saying 5 times a 50-meter sprint after a run, one day on the flats, even a 5 times a 50-meter after run another day during the week on a slight incline. Pure speed development, which is going to help the running efficiency, which will help their 800 and their 1600. And are they strong enough to to run the 800 properly or 1600 properly? Are they fit enough to be able to run, the 1600, come back in a 4x8? So a lot of these matter, and the type of stuff, when I talk about tempos and VO2 max, they help you become strong enough to come back and run a good double later on in the track meet. But workouts, I mean, are you doing take a look at my 200-meter segment workout and my 400-meter segment workout. Just to give you an example, Retanko, for the mile 1600, you're going to build towards 8 reps, but you can do a couple different ways. Okay, and I have this broken down into pieces on this channel. Let's just say you do 2 sets of 3 by 400. Okay, the next time you do 6 consecutive. 90-second recovery after the rep. You take about 3 to 4 minutes in between the set, and then you do 6 consecutive at 90-second recovery at mile pace. And then you go to 2 sets of 4, same recoveries. Then you do 8 consecutive. So this will teach you how to get towards 2 miles worth of volume at mile pace over time in a segment of workouts, so that you not feel like you have to go out and run 8 times a 400 just because the Ethiopians do it or whatever. That's not how to do it. Okay, build towards the progression, and the same thing applies for the 800. Okay, can you do 2 sets of 3 times 200, 800-meter pace? Okay, and then you do 6 consecutive 200s, 800-meter pace. The next workout, then 2 sets of 4, and then 8 consecutive 200s at 800-meter pace, building over time. So I've got videos here that discuss that specific stuff, right, Tonko? But those are good event-specific workouts. And then are you doing stuff at goal 800-meter pace? Let's just say the goal is 2 minutes arbitrarily because it's a flat number. Are you doing stuff at 59-60 pace? If the goal is 220, are you doing stuff at 69-70 pace? And so on in training, because that's the event-specific stuff you want to be locked into. Okay. But again, it boils back to taking what they run in the current mile. So if they run the 1600 current, let's just say they ran this yesterday, 5 minutes. Are they going to be doing tempo runs? Because you can build the tempo runs on what you've done recently in the mile, and it's essentially 50 to 60 seconds slower per mile than your current mile PR, and then you're going to build towards 20 minutes at that pace. That is a very good strength session. It also builds mental fortitude, helps you remain focused too, because you got to build mental toughness in this workout. If that makes sense, right, Tonko? If that answers your question. Coming cross country, will be losing a ton of talent. What will be best to supplement this loss of talent? Well, you work with what you have, obviously, and then you try to plug in the holes, Multi-Kenny, right? Get people to start getting used to running tempo runs at a certain pace, because this is when you can get the back end of the pack to kind of progress towards the front end of the pack, and it also tell you a lot about, okay, if I have a 5-person team or a 7-person team, how far is it from number 1 to number 7? How much of a gap? Because that's that point spread. You want to close that gap, right? How do I do that? These are the types of things that are going to help you do that. Okay, and if you have people that are a little younger or less fit, you can have them do shorter reps at the goal pace you're going to have the faster people do. So let's just say the faster people doing 800-meter reps at a certain pace, you can have the people that are behind do 400-meter reps to try to get them at that pace, and you try to build towards that. So I'm about to pull up times or mark. Yeah, pull up the times, Multi-Kenny. Let's see what you got. Any other questions, everybody? Does anybody else have any? I'll be here for a couple more minutes, and then I gotta go up and cook breakfast for my family. Let's see. Let's see what we got. But and that's the thing too, like, and having a collective consistency in the training. When you lose talent, it prepares people to kind of step up in their place, right? If they're doing the right things from the get-go, then new leaders will emerge. Then people will be fit enough and confident enough to say, okay, I can step into these people's shoes. People are losing 15, 59, 16, 40. So that's some talent right there, Multi-Kenny. That's for 3 miles, right? So, and what do you have? What do you have that's coming back, Multi-Kenny? Big mental breakthrough and went from 510 to 459. Nicely done, Jack Green. But there were a lot of flaws in my race. The last race is 10 days from now. Can I go? That's a jump again. But first of all, great job, Jack. When you say flaws, what do you mean by that? And how did you run your 459? How did you race it? Like, what were your splits? Well, 459 to 452 as a 451, that's essentially 2 seconds per lap. If you want to do that, you'll be able to go over a training program for a 400, 815 crew. Well, not a whole training program right now. But send me, Richard, email me the stuff that we were talking about. Send me what you're currently doing, because I can base a training program off what you're currently doing. And I need to see what you're currently doing so that I can build a training program out, Richard, if that makes sense. Steph, I don't want to completely overhaul your training, because what you're doing, there might be components in there that are working already that we want to kind of build off of, if that makes sense. But a full training program, it'll take me, you and I would have to do a video ourselves to do that. So returning at 16:36, 7:39, 7:40. So you got a big gap. So Multi-Kenny, I would start to lock in. I would get probably 2 training groups together and get that tempo run. Get that tempo run going for these training groups at the appropriate pace. And that's going to help, the back end of that pack work towards the front end of the pack. Okay. And you can have another round of kind of 15, 59, and 16 and sub 17s as well. But definitely get the tempo runs for the group. And you build towards 20 minutes. Okay. Don't feel like you have to go out right now and do 20 minutes. That's not realistic. You build towards 20 minutes. And then you add speed development in other areas of their training, which are going to help make it easier to handle the pace of the tempo runs. Terrible last lap, got bumped in the starts, so my watch stopped, and I put energy into fixing it. I got boxed in twice, trying to pass people. So this is another thing too. Jack, racing at 1500 or the mile is getting yourself out in a good position, right? Racing tactics, establishing. But I've talked about this recently too. Getting it into a good position, being basically in the outside of lane 1. Okay, so that you don't get boxed in. Being in the outside of lane 1 makes it difficult for you to get by. If you're in the inside of lane 1, it's easier to get boxed in. Okay, so from a race tactic standpoint, there's that. And then if you're looking to run 450, let's just say 452, that's 73 per lap. You want to try to go out to as close to that as possible in the beginning for the 400 and 800. If you're as close to your goal pace through the 800, then you'll be in a better position to come back easier in the second 2 laps. Okay, far too often I see, folks that want to run 450 go out in 65. And I'm like, why are you going out to 420 pace if you want to run 450? What's the point of that? If you want to put lactic in your legs early on, that's how to do it. Okay, and again, you have to have when it comes to 800 and 1500, you have to have a high level of situational awareness. You don't have a lot of time to respond to moves, right? So you have to position yourself in an area that prevents other people from boxing you in. Okay, that way you don't have to respond to moves. And if people are going out way too fast, let them come back to you instead of the other way around. But ideally, if you can get yourself as quickly as possible to the outside of lane 1, in the front of that pack, you'll be in a better spot. Conference with a bunch of 14 and 15 minute guys. I'm worried about demoralizing the defeats and how that will affect low runners these tough times. So this is what I'm talking about, Multi-Kenny. This is where you want to get that now. You want to start building on this pace now. And then you start adding speed development to it. What speed development is going to do is going to help those tempo paces kind of come down. And if you're running cross country in the fall, Now's the time to kind of get them used to these paces. That way you can progress over the summer and you can add stuff, and then they'll be ready racing cross country. You can get them in so much better shape for cross country if you're doing the right things now. Okay, and into the summer. And it's not like you have to do tons of workouts over the summer. You just have to do the right things. Okay. So, but I understand the demoralizing effect. I totally get it. So what do we have to do with this group? We want to try to tighten that pack so that they can work together. And when they work together, they can hold each other accountable, right? They can form their own identity to the team. Let new leaders emerge and other people emerge too. And the back of the pack you'll be surprised at how well you can get the back of the pack to run, working towards the front of the pack. So, and it's in an ideal scenario, I would personally rather have a bunch of people running 17 minutes, but a spread of 30 seconds, 45 seconds, than one guy at 16 and everybody else at 18, a 2-minute spread. I'd rather have a tighter pack. That way they can kind of keep their eyes on each other. That way they can work together, right, and push each other. Kill the same ones that I was talking about on track. Kill the same ones that I was talking. So this is where that's what I would encourage, multi-Kenny. So they run cross country in the fall, obviously, right? So what do you plan on having them do over the summer? Is the key. I've actually got videos on this channel too about summer base training programs per year. I've broken down by year, so you can kind of see the progression in volume each year for kids. I highly encourage you to look at that too. Rich is, yeah, send me the training programs. Rich is there. Okay, send me the training. Give me an idea what training looks like over a week or so I can look at it. Because I mean, it's good to see. Okay, my athletes run this and what that, but what type of training is getting them there, right? It gives me more intel, and the more intel I get, the better I can help you. Also, more workouts this week. I was going to do a longish workout, then threshold plus speed, then a short fence workout. 5 times 8, 5. So you're not racing this week, Jack, right? When you say longish workout, is that the 800, 5 times an 800? 3-minute rest. Is that going to be at what, 3K pace or 5K pace? And threshold plus speed. When you say threshold plus speed, like what are you talking about? 520 plays too slow for those. Let's see, the 240 for the 800s. Let's see. You're at 459, Jack. No, you basically run 240. 240 for the 800s, Jack. 5 times an 800 with a 3-minute. Yeah, that's about right. 240 is a good 238 to 240 based on your new mile time. But you just ran a big PR in the mile. I would not do 3 workouts the week after. Let yourself recover from the big PR in the mile. Sometimes when you make big PRs, big improvements in races, it takes a little bit out of your body. So instead of doing 3 workouts, I would probably do that workout. You have an off week, then last meet next Tuesday. That shall work. So when did you run that 459? Was it yesterday, Jack? Was it yesterday? Multi-Kenny, my pleasure, man. You can reach out anytime. So you can send me an email to blackbeltrunningcoach@gmail.com is my email. blackbeltrunningcoach@gmail.com. So you ran that race on Wednesday. Get the threshold speed workout. So you ran that work Wednesday. Are you running today, Jack? Or have you run today? So the last meet is next Tuesday. So essentially 9 days from today is when you're going to run the last meet. Okay, 9 days. Let's see. You did a long run yesterday, and I'm going to do something easy today. Okay, so yeah, you can do the workout tomorrow, and then I would do another workout Thursday. If you're racing next Tuesday, And then you can do some light speed on Saturday. And then I would take off Sunday and just run easy on Monday and then race Tuesday, especially if it's the last meet. 207, but only 503, 17. Yeah. There's something that could be missing, Multi-Kenny, in the training. It's probably VO2 max and tempos. Progression 150s on Saturday. That's fine, Jack. Progression 150s after a run. Yeah, that's totally fine. But this is a learning experience too, right, Multi-Kenny? So you learn from what worked and what didn't work, right? And you can kind of modify your training, let it evolve, okay? So that you can add this to the training and add this to the training to kind of get you to the next level. Because with a 207, you're looking closer to like 440-ish for the mile, right? So you have room for improvement. So 1738 for 3 mile, but a 503 for the mile, then you should be at 1638 for 3 mile. So definitely tempos and VO2 max, Multi. Yeah, that's a good thing to add to the training. It's a good thing to add to the training. But again, it's a learning experience, right? This is why it's good to do these live streams. This is why I want to do more of these live streams. So we can kind of pick apart, right? Identify, okay, what did you do here? What's not in the training? And how can we add it into the training? So this is why I'm gonna do more of these live streams. Like I said, I'm gonna do it for the half marathon and marathon too. And I want to answer as many questions as possible. I want you to have access to a coach that was not only a former competitive runner, but I'm also been coaching for the last 2 decades. I coached at the high school level, college level, the post-collegiate level. I've coached every event. And I want to share my insight and knowledge with all of you so that you can become better. There's no reason we'll go up around 16:30 for XC with the shape I'm in now. After a good summer, I'm open 16:30 for the 5K, Jack, or 3 miles. I don't know. It really depends on what's going to happen moving forward for you. Like 16:30. What did you open the cross country season in this past year? And obviously, and also what it really it depends on what you're classified as a good summer too. Or you can add. You'd be surprised at how much fitness you can add over the summer. Summer can make or break a lot of athletes. Okay, you'll be surprised, and I'll give you an example too. I had a kid who I coached. He was came in, ran freshman 5:47 for the mile, then he came in around 10:27 as a sophomore for the 2 mile, right? And then he ran over the summer between his sophomore and junior year, went down to 9:32 from 10:27 in the 2 mile to 9:32. And then he had a good cross country season that year. And then he ran over the summer again. He went from 9:37 to 9:04 for the 2 miles. Okay. So running over the summer pays huge dividends in cross country, which translates extremely well to track. But again, I notice a lot of people too who don't do enough running over the summer, doing the right running over the summer, and then they try to race themselves into shape during cross country, which is not the ideal situation. Okay. And I see a lot of people who race twice. You can't race 5K twice a week, a bunch of weeks in cross country. You can't do it and expect to run your best races at the end of the season. It's almost impossible to do. Okay. So you got to be diligent and smart about your training and your racing, if that makes sense. Scene, you pretty much took a 4-day microcycle of Clyde Hart approach. Monday volume 2s, Tuesday over distance, Wednesday event specific, Thursday speed sharpening. What about Friday and Saturday, Riches? What about Friday and Saturday? Open 1920 and closing 1750. Season was rough because of hurricane. Oh, yeah, okay. I would try to start in 1750 now, Jack, or faster than 1750 and go from there. Start and then kind of work your way towards. And again, what you do over the summer is going to help put you in a position to do that. Multi-Kenny, 202, 205 in the 8. Senior 150. Okay. All right. freshman or 15:59, but didn't break 16 again until the senior year. But today I felt like we not nice ones down. Well, it depends. It's folks like that, Multi-Kenny. They could be more suitable for the shorter distance, like middle distances. Maybe they plateaued at the longer stuff. So this is where a balanced training program really, really matters, because it'll tell you where your strengths are, which are more suitable running, right? If you're not progressing anymore at the longer stuff, then either something needs to be modified in your training, or maybe you've tapped out right now in the longer stuff, and you got to drop down to the shorter stuff, get better there, and then move back up, right? So, and this is where the kind of the coaching with the eyes and the science kind of comes into play, right? And experience kind of helps you identify this type of stuff too. And talking to other coaches who can be valuable assets too. Build up to 60 a week, starting at 25 over the summer. The peak mileage will have a long run threshold, maybe. What year of school are you going into, Jack? Are you going into a senior year? Are you going in the senior year? You're going into a junior year. 60 might be high for the volume. 60 might be a little high for you. 50 at peak this year. I would, yeah, I mean, 50 as a sophomore, that could be a little high too. I mean, what's your long run at, Jack? What's your long run at? And how many days a week are you running? Friday off. Never take the day off before meet, Riches. Never take the day off before meet. Yeah, middle school. Middle schoolers too. Yeah, that's another thing too. Middle schoolers, you take what you get from middle schoolers. That's true too. But if they're racing Saturday, I would always have them run on Friday. Even easy. Recovery, hydration, nutrition, sleep. Good. You want to do that. Long run is 8 to 10, but over the summer 10 to 12. Okay. How many days a week are you running, Jack? How many days a week are you running? Keep that in mind, Riches here. Always run the day before race. You want to keep the blood pumping in the legs. 6, sometimes 7. So as a junior now, one of the things I would encourage you to try is alternate. Okay. 6 and 7. So like you do 7 one day, 7 one week, and then 6 the following week. But you want to average the same amount of mileage per day during the week. So let's just say you're at 57 miles per day, right? Or 49 or whatever. Your long run is 10 miles. So, and then the following week, you're going to run 42 in 6 days, but you're still averaging the same amount of mileage. Okay. Not modifying anything in terms of the volume. So you don't need to make up because you have a day off. That's going to defeat the purpose of a day off. Just to keep that in mind. And then in the summer, Jack, I mean, what I do, it's up to you to decide when you want to do this. But the first 4 weeks, I get to the goal volume. So let's just say you want to get the goal volume, say 50, 55, right? Get there over the 4 weeks. And then after those 4 weeks, you add speed development in the next 4 weeks. Right? Uphill sprints one day, flat sprints the next day. Do that for 4 weeks. And then the last 4 weeks is when I would add tempo 1 week and threshold the other week and alternate them with the speed development. And you'll be shocked at how much fitter you'll get over the summer and how ready you are for cross country. Just doing that alone. You're giving your body a chance to adapt every 4 weeks to a new addition to your training. Periodization. So that's what I would encourage you to do. I would take off every other Sunday, Jack. I would take off every other Sunday going into your junior year, even in the summer. So it'll keep you healthy. It'll keep your progression going in the right direction. You're welcome. You're welcome, Riches. So it's just something to keep in mind. But Riches too, one of the things and it's just working with sprints and short sprints and long sprints, I have them do like pure speed on Monday, right? And then I have them do those event specific, those Clyde Hart 200s on Tuesday, okay? And then Wednesday I have them do hill running. Thursday I do the event specific stuff. Friday I work on down starts, relay handoffs, and stuff like that after a little bit of an easy run. And then they race on Saturday. And if they don't race on Saturday, I have them do like a little rolling run. I'll even bring them in to do it. A rolling, 2 miles or 3 miles over a cross country course, running over the hills, and then done. And that's a good kind of, and then take off every Sunday. Obviously, middle school, no doubt about it. So that's essentially a decent cycle to get them training consistently, but also sets them up to be sharp and continue to grow. And the volume doesn't need to be high if they're middle schooler, obviously. Base is a good time to start doing some lifting for legs. Shorter stuff and speed is lag. That's where, yeah, I mean, after you get to build your goal volume in the first 4 weeks, then you add, let's just say 5 times a 50 meter on an uphill on Tuesday. Then you come back and do 5 times 100 meters on the flats on Thursday or Friday after a run. You do that, right, for 4 weeks, you'd be shocked at how much leg speed you can develop. And then each week you can go from 5 times 50 meter uphill to 5 times 100. And then the 5 times you're on the flat to 5 times 150. You add 50 meters to each one every week, okay? And then you only do 5 reps. And then you do that for 4 weeks. And then you keep that in the training for the next 4 weeks, but you're going to add a weekly tempo 1 week, or you alternate it with a weekly threshold the following week. And now you're complementing the speed development with threshold and tempo. And you're doing that for 4 weeks before you start racing across country. You'd be shocked at how much fitter you'll get without being too tired, without compromising your recovery or fitness. So this is where you can address the speed development right here. But speed development is also an all year round thing too. So I would not take speed development away from the training when cross country's here. So, but this is where you can kind of maneuver the training around so that it fits in appropriately with the races and vice versa. So, all right, gangs. Anybody else have any other questions? I'm going to wrap this up. I'm going to go cook breakfast. I hear some hungry kids. They're running around and making a lot of noise upstairs. But I want to thank you all for coming on. Appreciate you. But I will be doing live streams on half marathon plan and a marathon plan as well. So that's going to be coming up in the next week or so. So get ready. Stay tuned. But I'll continue to do this, and I'll do this every week. Okay? Especially in the summertime, we could talk about how to build your base. What are we doing in the summer to help set you up for cross? And then we get in cross country, we'll do this the same thing. I'm going to do a live stream probably every week, probably every Sunday too. So you're welcome, Multi Kenny. Jack, you're welcome. Have a great one too. And again, if you have any questions, blackbeltrunningcoach@gmail.com is my email address. I always respond to emails. Okay? Always answer emails. Okay, so have a great weekend, gang. Okay? I'll see y'all next week.